Judge, how do you view your role as an arbiter in child abuse cases?
We have a set of scales out on the bench, and sometimes I feel in that position because one philosophy says we should keep the child in the family and attempt to restructure this family and service the family in order to keep the child there because the child needs the family. Then also we have a rather emotional philosophy that says that if there had been child abuse, punish the parents. And of course, if we do that, well, that usually breaks up the family in some way. So I try to weigh both matters, but if at all possible, try to rule with keeping the family for the child to grow up in.
Most enlightened, or those judges who appear to be enlightened, have come to that conclusion lately. Lisa Rachette of Philadelphia, for example, in her book recently, says that at all costs the family must be kept together. But that does not allow for some recalcitrant parents, people who might continually abuse the child.
I wouldn't say at all cost. I think this is a question that has to be weighed rather thoroughly. In fact, to me, this is the first question that really faces the people involved in child abuse work. Can we risk that child staying within that family? If we can't, I think the child should be removed until some further work can be done. I think the child needs the family, but I don't think the child needs to be abused further, and I think you have to weigh that. Sometimes there's a risk involved. To say if at all possible the child should be in the family, but if it's going to be at a risk of endangering the child's life, I think the child should be removed.
Now, when the child is adjudged to be benefited by staying with the family, obviously some therapy, some social work has to take place. How is that handled in Birmingham?
The Child Protection Services of the Department of Pension and Security, or Child Welfare, is the agency that legally is responsible for investigating and working with, providing casework services with families where there have been a child abuse incident reported.
Is that service sufficient?
No.
What would you do to improve it?
They need more staff. I think they need more public awareness in the future to help and sustain this department. I do not think all the reports are being investigated because of lack of staff and lack of people to do the investigation. I think the support of the public would be the main thing to help that department.
The public obviously will never be able to support a problem it doesn't know anything about. At this time, in the Alabama state prison system, there is one person incarcerated and charged with the specific crime of child beating, while other crimes relating to child abuse seem to be buried in assault with intent or assault and battery and other, if not lesser, at least more obfuscated charges. Would you have a more standard reporting system for this?
A standard reporting system?
Right. Reporting exactly what's going on.
We had the system. In fairly recent days, we had appropriate legislation providing for the reporting of child abuse. I believe that where we have failed down on this is that we have not gone out into the areas where they have direct contact with children, like teachers and neighborhoods, people who do know about suspected child abuse incidents, and they do not know where to report these cases to. We need to do some public education along those lines. Recently, we also had some legislation making child abuse basically a felony, which would go through the circuit courts and the felony courts rather than coming through this court as a misdemeanor. Frankly, I think that sort of clouds the issue because you've got the problem of a preliminary grand jury and having a jury trial, and all the time you still got the problem of the child, the family, and the reported child abuse. What are you going to do with them during that period of time? They have the laws, they have the legislation. I think most of our problems is in carrying it out, the procedures.
Do you think the laws are sufficient?
I think they're sufficient if they would be enforced appropriately, put it that way, or if we had the system to enforce them appropriately.
A little while ago, we were talking about rehabilitation and what the Department of Pensions and Security is doing about that. Should there be other alternatives?
I think there should be more supportive alternatives. Many of the problems in the juvenile justice field is that we don't have the alternatives. We have either or, either probation at home or training school. I think sometimes it's the same problem we have in child abuse in that we have either or. Either we leave the child with the family or we remove the child from the family. And we don't have all the alternatives of casework, of group homes, of home services, homemaker services, these type things, or various organizations could work with parents